The flag snapped in the wind like a gunshot. 10 feet tall, stars blazing under a full moon, its red and white stripes cast long shadows across the quiet suburban street. Then the sirens came. Not one, but three. Blue and red lights pulsed against the manicured lawns, turning the quiet cul-de-sac into a war zone. A man stood at the edge of his driveway, hands raised, heart pounding, breath shallow. He hadn't run. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't even touched the flag. But the officer's hand was on his holster, voice sharp, demanding he step away from the pole. Now. Neighbors peeked through blinds. A dog barked once, then fell silent. The air smelled like cut grass and tension. The man's palms were sweating. His pulse roared in his ears. One wrong move, one misunderstood gesture, and everything could end. He thought of his daughter. He thought of his father, a Vietnam veteran who'd bled for that same flag. And now here he was, being treated like a threat for flying it too high, too proud, too much. They didn't arrest him that night, but they handed him a citation. $500 fine. Violation of HOA Rule 7.3. Excessive display of national symbolism may disrupt community harmony. He stared at the paper, then back at the flag, still waving, still defiant. Since when did pride become a crime? And in that moment, something inside him cracked. Not in fear, in clarity. This wasn't about a flag. This was about belonging. And he was done asking for permission. His name was Marcus Ellison, 42, U.S. Army veteran, electrical engineer at a solar tech firm, husband to Lena, father to 8-year-old Jasmine. They'd moved to Cedar Ridge Estates 2 years earlier, lured by the brochure promises, tree-lined streets, top-rated schools, a community that feels like home. Marcus had saved for 10 years to buy that house, not just for the white picket fence or the backyard big enough for a swing set, but for the message it sent. We made it. After growing up in a neighborhood where police patrols outnumbered streetlights, where college was a dream whispered behind closed doors, this was proof. He'd played by the rules, earned his degree, served his country, built a life. Cedar Ridge was supposed to be the reward. At first it was. Morning jogs, coffee with neighbors, Jasmine's birthday party in the backyard, where he flew a small American flag just because he could. No one said anything. Not then. But the stares started soon after. The way Mrs. Langley from number 42 suddenly crossed the street when she saw him coming. How the HOA president, a retired banker named Richard Whitmore, always seemed to appear when Marcus was doing yard work, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning like he was looking for a reason. Then came the email. Per community guidelines, please refrain from displaying political or national symbols near the street-facing areas of your property. Marcus blinked. He'd only put up a flag on Memorial Day. He called the HOA office, polite, respectful, cited his service, asked for clarification. The response? A form letter. Cold, impersonal. All residents must adhere to aesthetic standards equally. Equal. That word echoed, because Marcus had seen the 4th of July decorations on the Thompsons' lawn, a full red, white, and blue light show, inflatable eagles, even a tiny replica Liberty Bell. No warnings, no fines. He mentioned it at the next HOA meeting. Richard smiled. Those are seasonal displays. Yours was permanent. Different category. Different, not wrong. Different. That night, Marcus sat in his garage, staring at his father's old flag, folded neatly in a case. He remembered the man's hands, calloused, trembling sometimes from the cold in Quezon, raising that same flag at every VA event, every July 4th. Pride wasn't loud for his father. It was quiet, steady, earned. And now, his son was being told to hide it. Lena said, don't let it consume you. But it already had, because it wasn't about the flag. It was about who gets to feel at home, and who's always reminded they're on probation. The fines started small, $150 for unapproved mailbox paint. Marcus had repainted it navy blue, same color as the flag. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing wasn't. Then came the landscaping violation. His azaleas were too close to the sidewalk. The HOA sent a crew to trim them, without notice. They cut the bushes down to stumps. Jasmine cried. Marcus filed a complaint. The board dismissed it. Discretionary maintenance. He requested minutes from the last 3 meetings. Denied. Confidential internal records. He posted a photo of the damaged garden online. Within hours, the post was flagged. Neighbors called Lena dramatic. One even said, maybe if he stopped making everything about race, people would leave him alone. But Marcus wasn't making it about race. The HOA was. He started documenting everything. Photos, emails, dates. He noticed a pattern. Enforcement only spiked after he did something visible. A new porch light, a basketball hoop for Jasmine, even the American flag, which, by the way, was allowed under federal law for veterans. He'd checked. He cited the Veterans Display Act in his next appeal. No response. Then another fine, $300, for excessive flag display. He appealed again. This time he brought a folder, his discharge papers, his father's service record, photos of his unit in Afghanistan. The board sat in silence. Richard cleared his throat. We respect your service, Marcus, but rules are rules. Rules that didn't apply to everyone. He drove home in silence. The radio played a news story about a black family in another state forced out of their neighborhood after installing a Black Lives Matter sign. Same pattern. Same quiet violence. Systemic. Sanitized. Smiling while they strangled your rights. Marcus stopped sleeping. He'd wake up at 3 a.m., heart racing, replaying the meetings, the stares, the way Richard wouldn't look him in the eye. He started noticing other things. The way his mortgage payments were higher than the white couple 2 streets over with the same loan. The way the school zoning changed, pushing Jasmine into a lower-ranked district. It wasn't one big thing. It was 1,000 tiny cuts, and each one said the same thing. You don't belong here. One night, he stood in the driveway, staring at the empty flagpole. Then he opened his laptop, pulled up property records, and saw it. 3 homes on the block, foreclosed. 2 more in pre-foreclosure. And one thing the HOA bylaws didn't restrict. Who could own property? A slow fire lit in his chest. What if he didn't fight the system? What if he bought it? The auction notice came on a Tuesday. One of the foreclosed homes, a 3-bedroom colonial, was going up for bid. Minimum offer, $210,000. Marcus didn't hesitate. He liquidated his retirement fund, took a second mortgage. Lena held her breath but stood beside him. If this is what it takes to feel safe, she said, then let's do it. He won the bid. Then another, and another. Within 6 months, Marcus Ellison owned 7 homes on the block, including one directly across from HOA President Richard Whitmore. He didn't rent to strangers. He found veterans, black, brown, LGBTQ+, disabled, people who'd been pushed out of nice neighborhoods for petty reasons, people who understood pride, people who respected the flag. And on the 4th of July, they all raised one, in unison, 30 feet of red, white, and blue, waving over Cedar Ridge like a declaration. The HOA called an emergency meeting. Marcus attended, not as a resident, but as a property owner representing 7 votes. Richard stood at the front, face tight. This display violates community standards. We're facing complaints. Marcus stood, calm, measured. I've reviewed the bylaws. No rule prohibits flags, only excessive symbolism. You've never defined what that means, and you've never enforced it uniformly. He pulled out a folder. Photos, fines, emails, side by side, his violations and the untouched displays of others. The room fell silent. Then he dropped the final page. A map. 7 homes. All his. I now control 58% of the voting shares in this association, he said. Effective today, I'm proposing a new rule. All residents, regardless of background, have the right to express their patriotism freely. No exceptions. No discretion. The vote was called. It passed. 7-3. Richard resigned the next day. But the real moment, the climax, wasn't in the meeting room. It was later that night. Marcus stood in his backyard, Jasmine beside him, Lena's hand in his. Fireworks lit the sky. His neighbors now cheered. Music played. Laughter echoed. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was proving anything. He just was. And that was enough. But as the final firework burst overhead, he looked down the street at Richard's darkened house, blinds drawn. The war wasn't over. It never is. But for tonight, on this block, under this flag, they had won. The story made local news, then national. Veteran takes back his neighborhood. Marcus didn't want fame, but he didn't hide either. He spoke at town halls, wrote op-eds, partnered with fair housing groups. His block became a model, a proof of concept that when marginalized people gain power, they don't destroy communities. They rebuild them. Some neighbors left. Others apologized. A few even asked how they could help. But the HOA never fully changed. New rules popped up, subtle, sneaky. A noise ordinance targeting late-night gatherings, a sudden audit of rental properties. The resistance wasn't loud. It was patient. And Marcus knew this was how racism often survived, not in hoods or slurs, but in bylaws, in tone, in the quiet power of exclusion disguised as order. Still, he'd shifted the balance. His daughter walked to school without fear. His flag flew every day. And every new family that moved in, no matter their name, their skin, their story, knew one thing: you belong here. Because Marcus Ellison didn't just buy houses, he bought back dignity. And he proved something powerful. When you're told you don't belong, sometimes the most radical act isn't protest. It's purchase, it's presence, it's staying. Today, Cedar Ridge still has tensions, but it also has a veterans garden, a block party every July, and a little girl who tells her friends, "My dad owns this whole street." So what's the takeaway? That racism isn't always a scream. Sometimes it's a fine, a rule, a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. And fighting it doesn't always mean marching. Sometimes it means planning, saving, buying the block. Marcus survived the paper cuts of prejudice, but why should anyone have to buy their right to belong? If this story opened your eyes, hit like and subscribe, because silence isn't neutral. And change starts when we stop looking away.